to everybody. And we have a really wonderful guest with us today, Jennifer Salter from MasterCard. Good morning, Jen.
Thank you, Sally. Happy to be here.
So we're going to be talking today about the evolution of the corporate newsroom. And Jennifer's going to share with us what they've been doing at MasterCard and how they're using their newsroom and this changing role of PR. And she has some really, really interesting stuff to share with us. So as sometimes does occur, we have a little glitch in that I'm going to have to move the slides for Jennifer today. So you will hear every now and again, please move the slides. I do apologize for that, but thank heavens there are two of us and we can actually get this together.
Great. Well, thank you, Sally, again. You know, I'm really excited to be part of today's webinar discussing the evolution of the corporate newsroom and importantly, our role as communicators is something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm excited to be able to share you what we're doing at MasterCard. And I just want to thank everybody for taking their time as well. I look forward to this being a discussion, so please, you know, share your thoughts, comments, and questions along the way.
And you can ask questions during the webinar. You have a question function in your GoToWebinar. So if you just type your questions in, you are all going to be muted during, so we won't have live spoken questions, but you can just type your questions in. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the questions, and I will feed them to Jennifer as we go through this 45 minutes. So Jennifer, I think we're good to get started. Take it away.
Great. Well, if you go to slide 2, the table of contents, there's really 3 things that I want to review with you today and hope that you take away. First and foremost, it's about the digital evolution. PR is modernizing, and I want to be able to share with you a couple of trends and observations that I'm seeing. And because I really think it speaks to the opportunity that it presents for us as public relations professionals. Secondly, the corporate newsroom, brands as publishers. This idea, is it for everyone? Is it for every brand? We'll talk a little bit about that. And finally, community. You know, what are the keys to success? What is your content strategy? At the end of the day, this whole evolution that we're in is a huge opportunity for us. It's a huge opportunity for us to evolve our skill set and to create community around our brand. Next slide, please. So first, let's talk about the digital evolution and how PR is modernizing. Now, I asked Sally before the call, you know, the makeup of folks participating today, and I think she said that majority of you all are probably in the PR field, and I think that's a great thing. And just last week, I saw this article in the New York Times, and it's around how PR agencies are beginning to push to modernize. And here's an example of Burson Marsteller, and you see their chairman in his quote. He's really emphasizing how the field is changing dramatically. He's describing how public relations agencies are moving from publicizing ideas to creating content, and content that drives those ideas. And I think he's exactly right. The next slide.
Right there.
Okay. So this is a slide that really speaks volumes in terms of the growing trust that consumers put into brands. This is taken from the Nielsen Global Trust in Advertising Survey that came out in September of this year. And if you look at sort of the top few spots, you will see that at number 2, branded websites are ranked number 2 in terms of who do people trust. And this was a survey of global online consumers. Of course, right under, you know, first spot is about word of mouth and recommendations from people I know. But I think what's interesting and the takeaway for us is that branded websites is now ranked number 2. Last year when I looked at this study, branded websites was number 4, and it was actually tied with editorial content such as newspaper articles. So again, I think this is a great observation that really points to the opportunity that we have, but not only the opportunity, but the responsibility. If we're hearing and we're seeing that consumers trust branded websites, they're trusting brands, then we have a responsibility to keep earning their trust and to be authentic and to provide engaging and informing content that's going to give them a reason to come back. So that's on that. The third observation that I wanted to share with you today is brands as publishers, and kind of goes along with the whole premise of my presentation today. This was another article that I came across this week recently. The New York Times reported that David Pogue left. He's a renowned technology columnist. He left to join Yahoo. And here you hear him confirming that he's going to be writing columns and blog posts each week. So I just question, is this, again, another sign of the times?
Okay.
Okay. So, hopefully, when I talk to folks, about what we're doing, first and foremost, what I like to do is try to set up the why. So those are just some recent observations. I think, over the course of the past few years, I think we've all, are in line with the opportunity that digital and social has brought to us. And in terms of building community and how brands can really embrace this impact, I mean, it's the idea that we're no longer reliant solely on reporters to tell our stories. We can use digital channels and create content to get our messages out there, to do storytelling. But should brands, in fact, become publishers? I think that's sort of the most recent question or trending question of the day. And, I think it's not for everyone. And I think there's a couple of keys to success if you're going to go down this route. First, you need to really embrace this idea of being a digital ambassador. And this is from social listening to engagement. We need to evolve our skills as PR people. How do we learn to be better digital spokespersons if we aren't already? In the traditional sense, we're media relations experts, and if we represent a company, we are a spokesperson, and there's always that opportunity that we would get a call from a reporter and to help to answer questions about our company, about the brand, and be quoted in the press. Well, how do you kind of take that mentality of being a traditional spokesperson and applying it to digital? So I'll show you some examples of how we're doing that at MasterCard. Secondly, be bigger than yourself. This is key. If you think that you're ready to be a publisher as a brand, then you have to take a step back and say, are we ready? Are we able to be bigger than ourselves? And what does that mean? That means that long are the days where companies and brands are creating messages and just simply broadcasting out information. Today, it's about interaction, it's about engagement, it's about sharing, and it needs to be bigger than your brand. It needs to be about something that you as a company that you care about. You have to think of the conversations that you want to spark, the conversations that you want to be a part of. So that's what I mean when I say be bigger than yourself. Third is scalable content. This is content creation and curation. My little catchphrase that I've been talking about is, do you have a plan? Do you have the 3 C's as part of your content strategy? That's creation, curation, and code. SEO is very, very important, and as PR professionals, if you haven't started to take a look at SEO impact and how you optimize content, then you're really selling yourself short. And fourth and last is about the publishing ecosystem. So here we are in digital. We have our newsroom, we have our blogs, but do we have the full ecosystem? Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook. Pinterest, Instagram. This is a whole ecosystem of digital platforms, and if done right in a cohesive way, really puts you in a powerful place as a publisher to be able to amplify your content across these channels, and importantly, in channels and on platforms where people are. So, summarize, these are the 4 things that, I think as we go down this journey and evolve our skill set as communicators, if we really want to take on this idea of being a publisher, think about these 4 things.
Okay. We're on the next slide.
Okay, great. So on this slide, we're going to start to go into a little bit about MasterCard and how we, this slide really speaks to the objectives for us in terms of building community. What we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to position MasterCard at the forefront of a dialogue around a world beyond cash. Many people today, I think when I go into a room and I say I work at MasterCard, lots of times the first question that I'll get is, oh, can you help, lower my rates? When in fact, MasterCard, we're a technology company and we don't issue cards. That's your bank, that's the issuer that does that. So how do we embrace this vision that we have of a world beyond cash, and how do we get influencers and communities, involved in that discussion? That's the first point. And driving the MasterCard value story in a way that's ownable, relevant, and instantly recognizable. Behind this is the idea of the omni-channel approach that we take. And what does that mean? That means that we want our communities, our stakeholders, to experience our brand and not the channel. So making sure that we have consistency in terms of the look and feel of our content across the board. And thirdly, of course, is build deep, meaningful connections with stakeholders we want to reach. At the end of the day, we're still communicators. We are still in the business of building relationships. How do we leverage the new channels and the new opportunities we have in digital to do that?
Okay.
Okay. So next slide.
Yeah.
Building community, always on engagement. What is this? What is this? Well, this is where we start. Here at MasterCard, we've built a state-of-the-art conversation suite. It's our social listening platform. We have we monitor and track conversations in 43 markets, 26 languages. And listening, this social listening really helps to inform our content strategy. It helps us to identify opportunities and challenges. It helps us to track how we're doing against our competitors, our share of voice. It's such a powerful engine of insights and information that really helps to inform what we do going forward. And then we move to the content strategy. Again, I think I touched on this omni-channel storytelling, and again, it's about no matter where you are, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Tumblr, if you're in our newsroom, that same consistent look and feel, that omni-channel approach, so that our audiences are experiencing our brand and simply not the channel. And we have multiple touch points across our publishing ecosystem, and I will talk a little bit about that as we get further on. Sally, should I stop? I mean, are there questions, or I feel like
I don't have any questions yet. If I have some, I certainly will let you know.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to get into the fun stuff, the content strategy. Being content creators and curators, I think, is such a fantastic opportunity. And my background is, I think I mentioned this, traditional corporate communications, media relations, and to have the opportunity today to actually create content and be creative is so great. And I think it's such an opportunity for all of us who've always been developing the story or the messages, like how we take that and now turn it into a visual way. Our overall content strategy is something, really, really important, and it's just a fantastic opportunity. So here, what I'm showing you here is the Engagement Bureau. The Engagement Bureau is our newsroom, and what we've done recently is we've actually just refreshed our entire newsroom and our blog this past September. And what we've done is is really focus in on making it cleaner, making sure that it's visually compelling, and just staying in step with the way people interact with digital and how people consume media. We know that it's less text. We know that it's more visual. We know that it needs to be snackable. It needs to be bite-sized. Attention spans are very short. How do you grab folks' attention, keep them interested, and engaged in your content? So what we've done here in terms of news briefs is we really introduced a new content type to the newsroom. So in addition to your longer form press release, if you will, we've now created this snackable piece of content called a news brief. And so what the news brief is designed to do is to provide sort of a summary of information. I'd like to think of it as 200 words or less that has quick links out to view the full press release, or here's a link to a video, or if it's a bigger announcement, could be even links to our fuller digital press kit. But these news briefs, they make up the home page of our newsroom. It's sort of the first page of our magazine, if you will, and it really highlights the biggest initiatives that are going on around our company. Again, it's created in a snackable way because the goal of the Engagement Bureau is to drive relationships with influencers, with journalists, with bloggers, and we want to make sure that they can find information that's informative and that it's fast, it's easy to interact with, it's easy to download. So that's the idea of the news brief. And then attached with that, you see our people, and there I am. Hi, everybody. And what's unique about this is that the traditional way to connect with me would in the past be perhaps my phone and email. But what we've done here is that we've added Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+. And the idea is that we have a new social contract. We are now digital spokespersons. So if a reporter wants to interact with me over Twitter, they can easily find my handle. If it's on LinkedIn, they can easily find me there. Or if you're old school and you still want to pick up the phone, you can do that as well. So the idea here, again, is making sure that our biggest content is exposed in a snackable way, and that it's clear, direct contacts with the people who are going to help that journalist or influencer, learn more about the information or get more news.
That's excellent. So you launched this in September, and you built this all in-house, but obviously you have a big IT department, right?
We have a big IT department. So our platform is actually built off of WordPress. That's our content management system. So my digital marketing colleagues, and we worked with W2O to help us design and develop the site.
Excellent.
Yeah, but the publishing, the content management is all done by my team here. And we are about 60 communicators across the globe. So the content that we create comes from all over the world, which is fantastic and really enables us to be a global company telling global stories and sharing global information.
That's fantastic. And have you seen a difference already in the analytics? Have you seen more people spending more time, more visits?
Yes. Yeah, so when we look at analytics, we're really looking to see, are we seeing sustained growth over time? And indeed, in fact, we are. And at the launch of this, I could see on the back end this content type already, gaining some traction out there in terms of, visits and shareability of the content. That plus in the old newsroom, you would find a link to media contacts, and when you opened it up, it was sort of a laundry list of, 20 people from around the world with their phone and email, and it's usually, the top 2 or 3 people on that list that would get the majority of the calls. The idea behind this is that if you are, a communicator here at MasterCard and you support emerging payments, all the great things that are happening with mobile payments, what you're going to find is that as we create content and as we create news briefs, you're going to see that same person's avatar connected to those pieces of content. So you see how the Our People pops up. It has my information, it has my bio, but then underneath it, it has recent posts. So you can imagine if I was stacked against the emerging payments, all of those recent posts are going to be things related to mobile payments, future of payments, and it's going to give the influencer or the person coming to the site the opportunity or the realization like, oh, gee, Jennifer is the person that I need to connect with to learn more about this.
Right. So when you come onto the home page of your newsroom, do you see the news briefs right away?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And there's always one of the people next to it.
Yep. Every avatar there is a worldwide communicator at MasterCard.
Okay.
And
how does it choose which person to put up?
So that's all done on the back end in the content management system. So when you publish through, you get to pick, who's the author. Our content management system we've been working with for a couple of years now, and it's pretty robust. I mean, you have to take your time to collect the photos, the bios, and upload everything so that you have your library of authors, if you will. But once everything is, as you're building content in that system, it becomes very easy to click through and pick the appropriate authors.
So if I were to log on to your newsroom, every time I log on, will I see a different communicator?
Hopefully you should, because then that would mean that there's fresh content.
Right.
So it's about associating your avatars associated with a piece of content. And so those little squares where you see the person, they're the contact, they're the media contact. So think of it as, at the bottom of your press release, there's the, media contact. What we've done is we've really put a spotlight on that.
Right. I just saw this morning some coverage of Matt Cutts speaking at PubCon in Las Vegas this week, and he spoke about Google authorship and how important that is.
Yes.
So are you connecting your authors?
Yeah, that's a great opportunity, especially, that falls into the whole optimizing your content and being relevant and searchable. If you have a Google Plus account, and we've been encouraging all our communicators to sign on, you're able within Google Plus to, in your profile, you can add the link to your newsroom or your blog noting that you're a regular contributor. And so what that does is when your content appears in search, not only do you now see the link to the content, but you also see the picture of the person. And so, when there's visuals associated with a piece of content, we know that there's a higher click-through rate.
Definitely. Some companies have said that they have a little concern that employees come and go, and then one individual is going to be associated with that press release and that brand, and then what happens if they're not there anymore? Has that conversation occurred?
No, it hasn't occurred for us yet. I know that, you have to, regularly upkeep your channels, and, we will go through and we do updates. If there are new folks that have joined our firm, our company, then we're adding them. If there are folks that may have left, we'll remove them from the contact list.
Okay, good. So I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Okay, great.
If I can just get it to do that for me.
Okay.
There we go. Oops, I went too far. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on the content strategy one.
So now we're still talking about content strategy, and now we're talking about our blog, our Cashless Pioneers blog. And the model that we use is something that is called stock and flow, or featured content versus real-time content. And we have a couple of different programs or content that you will see on a regular basis within our blog. The first example that you see here is more feature content or stock content, and it's about our third-party Pioneer initiative. And what this is we go out around the world and we find people who we think exemplify being a cashless pioneer. And what does that mean? We at MasterCard, our vision is a world beyond cash. We're a technology company that is innovating and creating new ways to pay. So we like to talk to people, to entrepreneurs, to governments, about why they've chosen electronic payments, and importantly, how has it impacted them and the people that they perhaps provide service for. So in this example, Brendan's 101, it's a local mom and pop cafe that for over 2 decades they were cash only. And recently with new innovations, they started to accept electronic payments. And within this less than 2-minute video clip, they talk about why they decided to embrace electronic commerce and sort of the value that they see in it. So if you take a step back and say, why is that important? Well, this is digital storytelling at its best, I think, where we're having real people telling the value of electronic commerce, electronic payments, for us. And the way this all came about is there is a restaurant in New York City called Commerce Restaurant. And when we launched the first version of our blog about 2 years ago, we had this idea of, gee, could we go down there and ask Tony, the owner, would he be willing to talk to us about, why he decided to operate a cashless restaurant? And so we called him, and he said yes, and we went down there with our camera, and within the first 30 seconds, completely unprompted, unscripted, he talked about convenience, safety, and hopefully an increase in sales as reasons why he decided to operate a cashless business. And we kind of knew right then and there that we were on to something. So over the past 2 years, we've gathered about 50 stories from all over the world from these cashless pioneers, and they range from entrepreneurs and small business owners like Brendan McGee, who you see here, to a hotel operator in Myanmar, a country that is just opened up, and a hotel that is probably one of the first to accept credit and debit cards, to conversations with the U.S. Treasury. If you are a U.S. citizen today and you receive Social Security benefits, you no longer get that check in the mail. And so when it's all done electronically. So when we sat down with the U.S. Treasury, in their story, they talk about how it would cost the U.S. Treasury $1 to issue every paper check versus 10 cents to do it electronically. So you can see the messaging that we're getting from third parties that really kind of, they're speaking for us in terms of the value of electronic commerce and electronic payments. And Sally, I don't know if you have the opportunity to play that video. Or if
no,
you want to try.
I'm not going to play it because very often it crashes the system, so I don't want to take the chance.
Okay. Well, if anybody's interested,
they can obviously go.
Yeah,
they can go to your site.
Yeah, you can go to the MasterCard Worldwide YouTube channel, and we have a whole playlist of cashless pioneers, and you could see the different stories from around the world. And obviously, on our Cashless Pioneers blog, you'll see some of these stories as well. So the way it's presented is we engage with these folks. We basically, this is not paid, and it's all, again, using our relationship building skills. We identify people, we reach out to them, we ask them if they'd be willing to share their story with us. It's presented as a guest blog, so along with the video, there's probably 200 words from them kind of talking about who they are and what they're doing. So it's a guest post, and we then, once the content is published, we will then share it across our digital platforms. And the third party that we also engage with has the opportunity to also share it.
That's fantastic. Now, you obviously are using a lot more visual and video content than you were, say, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wrapping up the press feed 2013 Media Relations and Online Newsroom Survey that I'm going to be presenting at the Society for New Communication Research Symposium in Boston in a couple of weeks. And that was one of the questions that we asked. How much more visual content are you using now than you were a year ago? If you were to take a guess, what would you say?
Than a year ago, I would say, 80% more. I mean, our newsroom and the blog, when we relaunched it, visual storytelling, presenting it in a clean, less text, more visual was a priority, and part of what we were trying to achieve. Every piece of content, like if you look at the guidelines, when I send out guidelines for the blog, we say now it must have at least one visual asset with it. It has to have at least a photograph or a video. It cannot be text only. I think those days are long gone. I mean, think about Pinterest, Instagram. I mean, you need to be able to communicate a story or a message in a very snackable way, and doing it in a compelling way so that folks will want to engage and share your content.
Exactly so. And one of the other things that we do both sides, we ask PR and marketing people the questions, but we also ask similar questions to members of the media. And that same question we asked every year, we ask again this year, how important is it for you to, when you're receiving news from brands or corporations or organizations, how important is it to have visual with it? And that has gone up dramatically.
Yeah.
So this stands out for me as one of the skills that PR people absolutely have to learn.
Absolutely. And like when we talk to our communicators, like I said, we're very fortunate. We have about 60 communicators around the world that help to contribute content. And so, the idea that, if we are at a trade show, what we like to say is, don't take photographs like you're planning a wedding album. We don't need to see the setup. We don't need to see, the round tables. Try to take 3 to 5 compelling photos. Get up close. We want to see expressions on people's faces, and we're getting better at it. You're always evolving again, but I think in the past it was like we'd get 10 or 20 photos and want to showcase every single one of them. Folks just they're not going to interact with 10 or 20 photos on a different event, on a particular event.
Right.
So what is that 1, 2, 3 compelling photos that you get those interesting sound bites, the caption that's going to go along with it, that's going to allow people to click, that's going to want to make people share your content.
And I would recommend for any company that they put some visual content training on their list of things to do in 2014.
Yeah.
We have a really good question from Brian. And he says, as a publisher, do you measure your circulation, so to speak? And if so, how, and could you share some hard numbers with us?
Yes. So yes, we do. I mean, we are driven by data and analytics, and we really try to take a look each month on how our content is performing, and we have these discussions where we like to take the emotion out of it and let the numbers tell the story. And I think that we're getting better and better at that. I do have some stats that I'm going to share at the end of the slide in terms of how our community is building. But the metrics that I think that are important, it's not about page views for us. It's not about a particular spike. It's about consistent, sustainable growth over time. So things that I'm looking at are going to be uniques. So unique monthly visitors. It's going to be visitors. It's going to be shares. It's going to be about time spent on our pages. And it's going to be about referrals. Where are people coming from? So those are probably the top metrics when I look at the content within our newsroom and our blog that we're looking at. And again, I'll come back to that and share with you how we're doing.
Okay, so I'm moving on to the next slide.
Okay.
So that Morning Brew.
Yeah, so Morning Brew. This is another example of stock or feature content that we have within our blog, and I think this is interesting, and we're really excited about what we do with Morning Brew. So basically, Nicole Ward, who's on our team, she's a former broadcast journalist, and what we've done is really created sort of our own beat reporter, if you will. So what Nicole does is, each week, it's a weekly series, at least once a week, I should say, where we go out and report on topics that we care about. So we put sort of the newscaster spin to it, and Nicole will report on some breaking MasterCard news to what we take the brew on the go, and we go out to the streets, and we like to talk to people about their experiences with electronic payments and how they feel. I'll give you a couple of examples. Over the summer, we went to a traditional farmer's market, which, if you've ever been to a farmer's market, it's very cash heavy. We found a farmer's market where a number of the vendors have started to accept electronic payments. And so we got in touch with the organizers, and we, again, introduced ourselves, told them what we were up to, and went down there and interviewed not only the vendors but some of the consumers, folks traveling there, and asking them about why electronic payments. And again, it's to help us uncover and to spark that conversation around a world beyond cash. We've done segments where we sit down with industry influencers. Mobile payments is a hot topic for us, so we will sit down with analysts, and Nicole will do sort of a Q&A style with them. So it's a weekly series. I wish we could play a clip for you, but again, if you go to our newsroom and the blog and search Morning Brew, you'll be able to see the different segments that we have.
I must introduce you to our local favorite burger joint, Jen.
Yeah.
It's called Jim's Burgers, and it's right here on the corner in Altadena. It's been there for, I don't know, 50, 60 years. And it's always been a cash-only business. My office has been here in the LA County Business Technology Center for 3 years. And until maybe a week ago, it was a cash business, always has been, and he's just started taking electronics.
Awesome.
So he'd be a great interview for you guys.
He'd be a great cashless pioneer. Absolutely. And do you know, he's taking electronics, is he using Square, or he just decided to set up?
I'm not sure. No, he's got a little thing there that you can put your
PIN
into and stuff.
Yeah, just as an aside, I think cash only is just it's a great proof point that people are more and more moving away from using cash all the time and wanting to use electronic forms of payment. BuzzFeed recently came out with a sort of top 10 things that New Yorkers hate, and we were thrilled to see that number 7 was cash-only restaurants.
Well, I travel a lot, and I love that the taxi cabs now all have the little square thing on their phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So
awesome.
in our Cashless Pioneer series, we sat down with Halo, which is a black cab taxi app. We've done stories with them talking about that same thing. My Taxi is another one that we've sat and we've talked to. So again, we're hopefully finding a lot of these stories and having these folks tell what the value of electronic payments through all of this storytelling that we're doing.
Okay, so we're into now influencer contributions.
Great. And so this is probably the third piece of stock content that we have, and it's influencer contribution. So it's an example of both featured content and curated content. So it's not MasterCard owned. We regularly have guest authors and contributors, and influencers provide perspective for our blog. And when you come to our blog, the conversations or the perspectives that we're sharing start with, a cashless society. And under that, there are some core topics that we care about and that we invite perspective on. And that is around financial inclusion, the future of payments, and the power of data. So we've had academics. This is an example of an academic from the Fletcher School at Tufts University. They recently came out with a cost of cash study. We, connected with them, and he provided a perspective for our blog.
Fantastic.
As one example, David Woolman, who is an author, a book called The End of Money. He's a pretty big proponent of a cashless society in different ways, and he recently authored a post for us. Just this week, iZettle, which is basically the European equivalent of Square. iZettle, I saw an article in The Guardian. They had this great program where they're working with the homeless in Stockholm. There's an organization, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it allows the homeless to sell newspapers so that they can earn a legitimate income. And what iZettle has done is enabled the homeless to use iZettle so that folks, if they don't have cash on them, and Sweden is known for being moving closer and closer to a cashless society, they can now accept card payments through the iZettle. So I saw that article, and I reached out to them, and he contributed a post, and that's up on our site as well.
Okay, good. So we're now on the flow.
So now we're on the flow. So, just bringing it back into a few slides ago, I talked about our model being around stock and flow. So we reviewed a couple of examples of stock content we have on our blog, and flow is about real-time curation. We work with a company, a technology company, Percolate, that helps provide our flow content, if you will. They help to curate content around those topics that I mentioned that we really care about, so that in between our more, featured content, we could provide, real-time flow content, and that is news stories that are related to the future of payments or a cashless society or financial inclusion. These are not stories that are all about MasterCard. And that would, going back to, one of the first points I made when you're considering being a publisher and being bigger than yourself, curating content and getting third-party perspective, I think, is really, really critical if you're going to be successful in terms of building community and building engagement around your site and the content you're providing. So anytime when you come to our blog and you see that drip, that's our curated content providing outside perspective on the topics we care about.
Perfect. So now we have to talk about SEO.
So now we have to talk about SEO, and this is the third C: creation, curation, and code. These are the 3 C's that you must remember if you're going to be a digital communicator, if you want to your brand to embrace being a publisher. It's creation, curation, and code. Today, what we say is that we're at the intersection of content and code, and you really need to understand SEO, and you really need to value the importance of code when you're creating content. Because if you're creating content and you're not taking SEO into consideration, your content's going to go MIA. Just think about all the time and effort you put into producing a piece of content. You need to optimize it so that your content is relevant and is discoverable in search.
I'll give you a really good example. I did a press release for a client this last week, and we had little bullet points in it, and we wanted to use the tweet this so that they were tweetable bullet points. But Google News doesn't like that many links in a press release. And the press release didn't show up in Google News, so now it is MIA. And no one's going to see it, even though it seemed like a good idea to put the tweetable links in it.
Right.
Google News is their recent thing about links in press releases. They didn't like it.
Yeah.
So we have to do it differently. We're going to have to rewrite it and do it again. But, it will. If you don't pay attention, it won't work out.
That's right. I mean, that's the beauty of Google. They keep, once you think you've figured it out, they change it up again. And so I'd really encourage, everyone that if you're working with agencies or you're at a brand, I mean, get to know who knows about SEO within your organization, who at your agency knows something about SEO. You need to really consider it. It needs to be part of your content strategy. I mean, I think it's just as important as, when you're creating content is to understand the code behind it. And it's it's a delicate balance. We're not robots. You don't want to speak, like you are a robot. But we know that reporters today, when they go to search on a topic, the first thing they do is a Google search. And so is your content popping up? Is it relevant? Content must be discoverable.
For sure. So tell us about your ecosystem and amplification strategy.
Sure. Okay. So what you see on the slide here is the Engagement Bureau. Imagine it at the center, if you will, and all of these other channels are channels that surround it. And so we need to create content to scale. We need to be efficient. We need to be able to use it in multiple ways across multiple platforms. We're still PR folks at heart, so efficiencies is certainly something that's near and dear to us. So what we've done is we think of the Engagement Bureau or the Cashless Pioneers blog as sort of home base for our content. And then what we do is we create snackable versions or different versions of it to share across the different platforms within our ecosystem. Going back to the Brendan's 101, the Cashless Pioneer story, we have the featured video content that lives in our blog, but then we also will then, of course, tweet that out to our followers with the link back to the blog. We will take a picture from that story, and we come up with different cut lines or headlines that perhaps one photo we will use and share on Tumblr, another on Pinterest. But embedded in all of those is always the link back to the newsroom or to the blog. So what we're doing is we're amplifying our content across these digital platforms where we know consumers and influencers live. And hopefully that is bringing people back to the Engagement Bureau, back to the Cashless Pioneers blog, where they're hopefully going to interact with our content and hopefully find more pieces of content that they like and being able to share it and engage with us that way.
Perfect. And now it doesn't want to move again. Come on.
Okay, so now I know someone asked about, so how are we doing? Well, the one thing I would say is that 99% of what we do is organic growth. We sometimes use Outbrain support to promote some of our content, but everything we do is through organic growth, meaning building our influencer base on Twitter, or our traditional media relations folks sharing our content. And actually, before I review the numbers with you, all of this content that we're creating helps fuel our news engine as well. And that's the traditional side of the house. And we still, as much as we love digital and social, you can't forget about traditional. And print in many ways is still very important to us, and especially to our executive committee. Nothing trumps sort of front page business section of the New York Times, so to speak. So a lot of the content that we're creating, our news engine team will use as proof points, will use as a way to help craft their pitch or provide examples. So everything that we do to drive our ecosystem, like I said, it's sustained organic growth. I mentioned some of the metrics that we care about, and it's unique monthly visits, shares, referrals, time on site. On Twitter, we're looking at our followers, our reach, and engagements. Total exposure, those are great big numbers to look at, but I want to be able to see that we have engagements week over week, and is that number being sustained? Is it growing? So that's what we're looking at. So when we look back over this past year, the past 3 quarters, we know that we're touching approximately 540,000 people each quarter. We can see that through the visits to the Engagement Bureau and the Cashless Pioneer blog that it's up over 35%, and that because of our SEO efforts, we've doubled our organic entrances since the beginning of the year.
That's excellent.
Thank you.
So that's it. We're on the last slide.
Yes.
Anything else you wanted to share?
I'm not sure. I'd welcome any questions. I feel like I've said a lot. I've talked a lot. It's a very exciting time to be in communications. I think that it's an opportunity to learn, it's an opportunity to grow, and it's an opportunity to do some really exciting stuff.
Absolutely. So just to remind you, this was brought to you by PressFeed, which is a hosted online newsroom. And we can have this kind of a socially integrated newsroom up and functioning within 2 weeks. You don't necessarily have to build it yourself. If you have a wonderful, talented IT team, you can do that. But that does take time, and it does take expertise. We'd love you to follow us at PressFeed and my personal one at Sally Falco. You saw Jen's at the Digital Jen. And thanks very much for being with us this morning. If you have any more questions, we'd be more than happy to just ping us on Twitter, and we'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Thanks very much for spending your Friday with us. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Great. Thank you so much, Sally.